Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and today I want to talk about the circle of fifths, but most specifically, a certain wedge of that circle that lives within any given key signature. For instance, in the key of C, the wedge might start on E and go backwards. E is a fifth above A, is a fifth above D, is a fifth above G, is a fifth above C, and I'm home again. That's the harmonic highway, and it's used all the time in songwriting, chord progressions, harmonizing melody. I've got 6 short examples. Let's dive in. I've got a little visualizer here. It's a physical circle, and up at the top it says C, and then maybe you can see it, C, G, D, A, E. This traveling back around is what I call the circle of fifths and what other people call the circle of fifths. B is the 5 of E, is the 5 of A, is the 5 of D, is the 5 of G, is the 5 of C, and of course C is the 5 of F. Now, what that means is this particular slice of the pie, and it's a generous slice of the pie, are all notes from the C scale. I could rock over one place and I would get all the notes from the G scale, etc. I'm going up in fifths as I add sharps, and then down, taking away flats as I continue around the circle. I don't really want to talk about the circle of fifths today so much as something that my teacher called the harmonic highway. And the harmonic highway is just that slice of the pie that lives within any given scale. Well, it really works because of tonic-dominant relationships, and I want to kind of show you what I mean. Take a look at this, and I'm sure you remember that the fifths that we're talking about are invertible. That G went down to a C. That G could go up to a C. And in the first case, it was obviously a fifth. In the second case, it looks like a fourth, doesn't it? Fifths and fourths are invertible. You can go different directions all around the wheel, and you'll still get the result. In fact, you can actually create chords that go in circles of fourths instead of fifths and still get an interesting result. Think of Hotel California, for instance. Well, all that is super useful, especially when the G is the root of a G7 chord that really wants to resolve to C. This motion is essential to Western music theory. But let's go back a little bit further around the circle, because that's where it starts to get interesting. D minor 7 is the sort of natural 2 chord in the key of C. G7 is the 5 chord, and C is the 1 chord. And if I look at what just happened root-wise, D went up a fourth, which is the same as down a fifth, to G, and then G went down a fifth. Let's keep rotating backwards around the circle. A is the 5 of D, which is the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C. I'm going to play A7, which is not in the key of C, but sounds great going to D minor 7, which sounds great going to G7, which sounds great going to C. Are you ahead of me yet? I'm going to keep going around the circle. E minor 7 is the 5 of A7, D minor 7 is the 5 of G7, and C. Now, I think the important thing about what I just did is that the pairs of chords that seem to work best are minor 7, dominant, minor 7, dominant, and then maybe you land on a major. And that's because 2, 5, 1 is just so beautiful sounding and gets used so much in our music. The 2 chord, D minor 7, goes beautifully to the 5 chord, G, and 1. I can ratchet myself back along the circle and sort of extrapolate that E minor 7, A7 would naturally flow to D minor 7, G7, which takes me home. Let's ratchet a little bit further. Okay, so I went E, A. So what's the 2-5 that gets me to E? Well, unfortunately, F is the note in the C scale that would be the 2 of E, but we know that that's not going to work. And suddenly we have to create a workaround, which is we take the F sharp and we make it a half diminished chord to B7, which again is not in the C chord, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, and I'm home again. Let's look at what it looks like on the screen because I'm just talking and playing on the keyboard. F sharp minor 7, such a beautiful chord, is the 5 of B7, which is the 5 of E minor 7, 2, 5 to A7, D minor 7, which is a 2, G7, which is a 5, 1. And if I look at those roots, I see just a beautiful example of the circle of fifths. And it's the circle of fifths within, with one notable exception, the major scale. It's the harmonic highway. I've got 6 examples of it. Let's go back to the beginning of this and take a look. Well, first of all, I just want to say that if you're getting something out of the channel, if you've seen a couple of these videos and they're useful and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. You know, having a decent subscriber count and lots of views, comments, not only helps the channel and helps me get a kind of a message out to people, but it also builds a community, doesn't it? And I think a community of music theorists, of musicians, composers, songwriters, who are kind of, hope all of us, interested in using music theory, not academically, but in a way that's functional, something that's just like kind of a get her done, what I need to know, how can I move forward with my own music? I think a community like that is just great. I mean, I'm a member of a bunch of different music theory, you know, discussion groups. And there's a lot of, I guess I would just kind of say, bitchiness about like music theory rules, right? But I'll tell you what my teacher told me. You must become your own theorist. You've got to know what's important to you and find a way to make it work every time in your music. What's going to identify you as an artist is the things that you do that are yours. The things that you'll never do, right? What you'll never do is a big part of who you are as an artist. So choose what you like and put down the rest. Come up with a reason for doing what you're doing. And maybe also some language to describe it. And, you know, who knows? You may come up with something really, really new. Well, this stuff isn't new. It kind of looks backwards, but it is useful and it's great to know. And so I've got this example of a simple piece, and it's exactly what we just looked at, which is kind of a chord progression, circle of fifths. I'm using jazz chords. So you have ninths and 13ths in those voicings, but a simple arpeggio. So pretty. So I'm outlining the bass root, fifth root, and just arpeggiating the rootless voicings in the right hand. And here are those chords again. E minor, A7, D minor, G7, to C, 6, 9, right? Yeah. Let's go on. So in a way, the rules kind of feel the same. They apply the same way when you get to minor keys, but the whole thing is a little bit different. Like, let's say I'm in A minor, which is what our next example is going to be in. A is the 5 of D. A minor is the 1 chord. D minor is the 4 chord. So these are 2 minor chords. So they don't have quite the same, I guess, weight or propulsion that 2 5s do, but that's okay. We don't mind. D is the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C, which is the 5 of F. And now I have to ratchet myself back into key because, of course, B flat would be the next chord, and that's way out of A minor. So I'm going to go to B, half diminished, and then E sus to E7. I'll do that progression again. It's I Will Survive, and it gets used a lot of places, but I'll tell you what, it's a circle of fifths, isn't it? A is the 5 of D, D is the 5 of G, G is the 5 of C, which is the 5 of F, and now I have to click around a little bit to get it back into the key of A minor, not B flat, but B, which is the 5 of E, which is the 5 of A. The whole thing starts again. And I've given myself this lovely little pattern. I love the sus7 chord to the major third there. It gives us this great propulsion. No one ever went broke using that chord progression. It's a beauty. As Faulkner said, no one ever went broke writing about the South. Let's go on. What if you want to use like jazzy chord substitutions with this idea? We'll go into the key of G, and we'll think about the harmonic highway within the key of G, right? So G is my target. I know that. But I need to start a long way away from it. So I'm going to do that trick where I take the raised 4 and make it a half diminished chord. So C sharp, half diminished, is the 5 of F sharp, which is the 5 of B minor 7, which is the 5 of E, which is the 5 of A minor 7, which is the 5 of D, which is the 5 of G. But listen to this variation of that. I'm going to do tritone substitutions for all the dominant chords. I'm going to replace the roots with the root a tritone away. And this is stolen directly from Cole Porter's Night and Day. Listen to this beautiful thing. He even changes the quality of the dominant chords. So like, let's see, C sharp minor 7, C minor 7, B minor 7, is it? Yeah, the next one is diminished, and then finally a regular old 2-5-1 A minor 7 G. But listen to how beautiful this is. There's an inevitability to the bass line sinking by half steps, and we get the tricky quality of the 2 5s around the circle, around the harmonic highway. And it's a very jazzy sound using the tritone substitutions, using the 2 5s around the harmonic highway. Well, clearly you don't have to stick with the basic versions of any of those chords. You can have the roots moving in fourths or fifths. You can do tritone substitutions for them. You don't have to stick with 2 5s that are minor 7 dominant. And in my next example, I've really stretched it very far. So look at this series of chords here. Just we'll listen to it and I'll talk about what's happening. I'm using something that we talked about before, which is I'm borrowing chords from the parallel minor, in this case of the key of G. And I'm also, instead of going around the circle of fifths, I'm ratcheting backwards. That is to say, I'm going around fourths, right? And you know, it still works, right? So G major, but D minor, a fourth to A minor, a fourth to E minor. and then more borrowed chords instead of kind of an E, instead of going to E and then keeping going around to B, I've got B flat major, so cool, backdoor cadence F to G sus, because G sus just sounds better to my ear. So I'm kind of breaking the rules that I set up, but at the same time, it's very much in line with the idea of a harmonic highway pathway. I've just decided to walk the other direction along the path and replace some of the stones in the road with chords that I've borrowed from the parallel minor. And I have to say, I love this little piece of music. Great melody to go with interesting progression. Let's go on. So my next example is sort of a classic sort of implied music interlocking hands trick. And what I've done is to take 3 notes at a time. See this first D minor chord here? And then this voicing is going to be G minor once the other hand comes in over the top to add the Gs. And this is going to be a kind of a, E flat major chord. You get what happens as I combine everything. So you can hear the notes independently this way. And so I'm kind of giving you what my teacher used to call fractional voicings in one hand, and then the right hand over the top will have octaves, and then we're just going to kind of drum that to create a texture. The motion of the texture is derived from the harmonic highway. Polymeters, a very simple polymeter, 2 and 3. Let's go on. Okay, our last example is, I guess I would just describe it as a harmonic highway parlor trick. And this is something you can amaze your friends with. Outside of the conventional scale system, diatonic, major or minor, or any other scale system you'd like, what if you have a circle of fifths in which all of the chords are dominant? They all have a major third and a minor seventh, and extensions beyond that. Well, look at how that might look. Here I've begun with this F sharp root, which then goes to B, which is the 5 of E, which is the 5 of A, which is the 5 of D, which is the 5 of G, which is the 5 of C. So I've used that trick where I take the F and make it an F sharp, raising the 4th degree of the scale. So I can use 7 tones to get around. Now let's make all of those chords dominant. For an F sharp dominant sound, I'll need a minor 7th and a major 3rd. For an B dominant sound, I'll need a major 3rd and a minor 7th. Minor 7th, major 3rd, major 3rd, minor 7th. Have you noticed that these notes are tritones descending in half steps? It just works out that way. It's kind of like I guess I would just describe it as an artifact of European harmony. Those tritones descending in half steps and the roots moving in fifths. There's a very strong progression. Now, what if I take those tritones and I put them in the left hand, which is what I've done there, until the end, where I get a major 3rd to resolve. And what these are just major triads also descending in half steps, which means when I play this and add this chord on the top of it, I'm getting a fairly strong sound. This is a upper structure flat 7, basically. And I can just kind of sink down doing that. Really a lot of fun. Technically not a upper structure chord because I've got 2 sevenths there, but you get the idea. And I can do the same thing with a different inversion. It's upper structure 6. Very jazzy, great in horns, great in strings. You can decouple those and create little inner voices with them, or you could grab it, the second voice from the top and flip it down an octave. Give yourself drop 2 voicings based around that. The harmonic highway, the circle of fifths within a key signature, major or minor. Lots of possible monkey wrenches to it. We looked at substituting major and minor chords, different chord qualities, borrowing chords from parallel minor. There's lots of tricks we can do with it, but they all kind of look backwards towards the conventional European harmonic system where 5 goes to 1, and they all derive their power from that convention and that expectation, right? Well, I hope it's been useful. Sometimes a lot of questions about this kind of thing, so drop me a line if you still need a little more clarity about it. I'm curious to know if you guys use this kind of stuff in your own work. Well, I'll see you next time.